Hey guys, happy Sunday. Many blessings to you all. You're a God whether you like it or not. You can deny it, right? You can always deny something. I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and he was talking about somebody who was counseling. Somebody that was just looking for answers, right? When you're counseling somebody, they're always looking for answers. And so, a lot of times we're given channeled messages, and I mean this is what this is, right? It's a channeled message. We're given messages, to give to people. And he said something to me right before I left him, and it struck me as odd. And I had to stop and think about it for a little while, because she asked him what he thought she should be doing, and he's like, "Well, I mean, I don't want to be your God." It hit me, and I was like, huh. The fact of the matter is the way you experience God is through everything around you. Everything is a filter that's filtering out some kind of its own understanding of reality. So we create a reality based on our beliefs. What else does God do, right? Creates a reality based on its own understanding. So as understanding and awareness grows, you step into higher states of reality. Like the things that have, that have IQs of, like, say, 700 IQ. If you're familiar with Stephen Greer and the work that he's done in the ED5 project, where they've projected images out into space, and they've actually had extraterrestrial beings show up and talk to them psychically. Some of them have said that they've had IQs of 500, 600, touched people and healed them instantaneously. Those beings, right, their level of understanding is the reason why they're in a higher state of reality that they can pop into a lower state if they want to, because they've already mastered it. Right? They're no longer feeding off of this energetic state anymore. And that's actually what Jesus taught, right? How to let go of your burdens over time, and how to do that, how to become more energetically free. And the only way that you can do that is to create energetic exchange with your environment, other conscious things. If you're pouring your energy into unconsciousness, it means that you're staying unconscious, which is why we see, I talked about this in my last video, and I did make a mistake on my last video, one of my last videos, about how I said that Abraham was about ready to sacrifice Jacob, but he wasn't. He's getting ready to sacrifice Isaac, Jacob's older brother. Jacob's the one that wrestled with God and became Israel. I think Isaac was his older brother. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you can explain, just knowing that, you can explain the entire Bible and Old Testament, all the way through the New Testament to the end of Revelation. The whole book, the spirit of the book, is telling you the same story. And that's why I love the book of Job so much, because the book of Job is the only place you're going to find in the Bible where God actually explains himself as everything. Literally. There is not anything that isn't God. It's just operating in different levels of self-awareness. And so it will feed on itself in a variety of different ways, depending on its own level of unconsciousness. And once it reaches a level of super consciousness where every cell in the body becomes fully conscious, it ascends. It can't exist here anymore. At least not with everything else. It's the same, because otherwise the environment has to kill it. It's a sacrifice. It becomes a sacrifice. That's all of it, right? You're surrendering to your heart space. Surrendering to your heart will always lead to more consciousness, because you're giving and receiving love naturally. You're not trying to push your money into some kind of unconscious thought form that's relative to you in time space. It's unconscious relative to you. It may have its own level of consciousness, but relative to you in space time, it's unconscious, right? Relatively. Like, you can talk to the trees, you can talk to the animals. But for us, talking to each other, talking to other people, and giving and receiving love, that's what's going to make us the most energetically aware of ourselves. And if you surrender to your environment and take care of its needs, the organism can't kill you. If it does, it's destroying itself, right? The organism will only allow the things to die that are threatening the other organism, the rest of the organism. And what is threatening the rest of the organism? Something that's pouring their energy into unconsciousness, because it's unconscious. It's dead, right? That's why Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. They were viewing somebody as dead because they're not alive. Their level of awareness isn't to the point where they can see that those are just temporary vessels for a part of you. There's no such thing as death. There's only states of awareness and shedding a vessel until you perfect it over millennia. It could take 100,000 tries, of existing as a human. And then there's some beings that are put in human form as a seed that choose to do that, to become a sacrifice for the rest of to raise the energetic state of the organism. How else do you do it, right? You have to create a seed from source, or something much higher, right? It might not come directly from source, but it might come from, let's say the 13th dimension or the 12th dimension. Something high enough to where it's a pure enough thought form relative to us to make sure that we are being energetically fed with the right information to allow us to ascend to a higher level. And you're always going to ascend to a higher level if you're sacrificing to the heart space, right? So when Jacob became Israel, they became a holy people, but they limited themselves because they always viewed themselves as less than, because they held to the law. They had to create a law and say, oh, we must do this, so we have to make a sacrifice to amend for these things that make us bad, right? They still were holding on to some kind of morality. So those things made them bad, so they viewed the rest of the world as bad, which put them at war with the rest of the world. But they still viewed themselves as a holy people, which placed them in a higher state of being than the rest of them. Because the rest of the people around that area were worshiping Baal and other just pure idol worship, where they weren't, right? They were worshiping, called him the God of the Israelites, right? The Yahweh. Yahweh was the lawbringer. But they worshipped El Shaddai, or God Almighty, before that, because that was the one that was took care of them in the desert. But the law is what they felt gave them, made them a holy people, to keep the law, to try and keep their vessel clean. And they knew they couldn't keep the law, so they had to sacrifice. But that's why Jesus showed up, right? Jesus showed up to say, hey, look, there is no law. The only law is that you love one another as yourself and love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And what he's saying is, you have to fall in love with your own heart. And because that's where everything comes from and goes back to. Everything. And it's where the fullness of the Godhead bodily comes from. So, and it's very hard to master, right? To become the father and the mother, to have compassion for those that are blind and cannot see. It's pretty difficult to get mad at somebody that's blind. But once you give the truth to somebody and they don't understand and they refuse to acknowledge their own, what they are, right? Everything is just this weird dichotomy, right? You're whole, but you're also a part. And so if you closed yourself off, you're not acknowledging the fact that everything else is whole as well, and it's all a part and whole at the same time. So you're living in darkness and light at the same time. You come into higher levels of consciousness, but you will always be in the dark. Always. Because you'll always be a part. Unless you go all the way back to source and you're experiencing the whole thing all at once. But you're not manifested as a part at that point. That is the only time that you will then never be in the dark, right? Anytime you're a part of anything, you're going to be in the dark. It's just part of the deal. So what are you going to do? I mean, acknowledge the fact that there's blindness, and as soon as you acknowledge the fact that there's blindness, it puts you in a state of surrender, so that you surrender to your heart, so that you ascend in consciousness and you start moving from darkness to light. That's where it creates growth, never-ending growth, and then it pulls the rest of the organism with it until the seed gets sacrificed, and then the whole thing ascends. Right? That's every story is exactly the same. It's just fruit falling from a tree and consuming all the unconscious energy. I was thinking about this the other day, and this is just conceptualized theory. What actually happens, and this is, there's prophecies in the Old Testament after Daniel. I think it's in Joel. I would have to look it up, and maybe I will look it up for my next video, where it talks about the priests getting the right signs at the right time, and then telling everybody and the animals to fast for 40 days and 40 nights before the sun goes dark. And then the sun goes dark afterwards. I think at the end of the 40-day fast. When you fast just on food, and you don't eat food, and you just drink water, your body will still flush dead cells out of the bottle. Now it's good for you, because your body will flush dead cells out of the body, but that means it doesn't have to transmute itself. So think about what happens if you fast on both. No water, no food. The cells in your body have to start cannibalizing themselves and locking themselves in and consuming their own water to make sure that the body doesn't die. Eventually, the body would come to a stopping point, right? Where there's nothing left. There's no more dead material to consume, right? Whether it's fecal matter or, things that the body normally processes. It's got to consume everything that's available to stay alive. Your organs do the same thing when your body initially starts shutting down. That's when you start getting when you start to lose consciousness, when you get close to death, and your organs start to cannibalize all the oxygen in the body because you're not breathing well enough. I experienced my mom go through cancer, and this is the last stages of when you get close to. Sometimes the body can live for another week, or maybe 2 weeks. Nobody really knows. It depends on the health of the body. But your internal organs, your body starts to protect your internal organs and starts focusing all the oxygen there, and so you lose consciousness because less oxygen goes to the brain. So more of the oxygen goes to the thing. But if you stopped eating and drinking water, for one thing, all the cells in your body would have to equalize to make sure that the water gets evenly distributed. And then the metabolic rate would slowly slow down, right? And then as soon as it came to a stop, it would come to a stop probably simultaneously, because it's not like, your whole body, every part of your body is consuming sugars and oxygen, right, to stay alive. Those sugars and oxygen, you're not adding, but you're also not subtracting. You'd stop urinating, you'd stop pooping, right? If you stop drinking water, because your body's not moving anything, it would start cannibalizing all that stuff. As soon as it got done cannibalizing the food available to it, the unconscious energy, now it's starting to become fully conscious, right? Because you've cannibalized all the unconscious energy in your body. And now this is just theory. But the theory is that as you're doing this, you're becoming more and more conscious. You'd start moving through massive emotional blockages, because you've got an emotional attachment to thinking that, I need to drink this or I'm going to die, or you're going to feel a certain way, because you're definitely going to get a headache. You're going to get all kinds of, and you'll go through phases where it'll recede, right? You'll experience pain and it'll recede. It's just like a growth cycle. It goes like this, sine wave. And eventually you get to a place where once you've consumed all the unconscious energy, you're going to go through some kind of ascension process. It's all coming from the heart space, always surrendering to the heart. And so that's my own personal theory, is what happened with Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, but all three, where Jesus actually taught the formula for it. Moses couldn't. He was trying to bring the law and realized you can't make anybody follow an external law because it's based on judgment and debt. So it's pointless, right? It's a growing organism. There isn't anything that's bad. It just doesn't know what it's doing. So, doing that isn't going to create any kind of growth. It's just going to create stagnation and repeating of old patterns, because you're constantly judging yourself and then recreating that state of mind over and over and over. So, very interesting, right? The organism is constantly growing, and we've looked at that evolutionary record, and then you can see it. The Bible's an excellent reference because the way it shows the evolution, where the organism is protecting itself in a specific way for a specific time for a specific reason. Like if Jesus would have come when Israel did or Jacob did, he would have just been killed and it would have been pointless, right? Because the organism wasn't at the right time and place. The Jews needed to create laws and protect themselves in the region, or their enemies would have just run them over and killed them, right? So they had to create a self-identity of a holy people to protect the organism, because the organism is always holy. And if it doesn't recognize that, it'll destroy itself. And so religious systems were created mostly as a feeding mechanism, right? For one control system to feed on another. Because nobody sees themselves as a sole sovereign God entity. Always see yourself as less than whoever your messianic figure is. And it's even that in itself is a dichotomy. The messianic figure knows that everybody has the same potential. But for whatever reason, that messianic figure was the only one that got the information to give everybody the keys to their own success. And so even though the messianic figure knows that it's no better than anybody else, it's still the one with the information that nobody else has. So it becomes a messianic figure. It's so crazy how everything is this amazing dichotomy. And so even everything in the Bible, the way it's written, where it's, he was a Messiah because he's bringing a seed of information. You just become a teacher and a healer. So you heal yourself to the point where you can heal anything. And we're witnessing that right now, right? Joe Disparza is a great example who really has a grasp on breaking down the body and seeing how the body can create any chemical that it wants when you get into certain meditation states. Knowing that you are creating reality. Knowing that you are God. But most of I would say 99% of the Christian churches in this world, which is so sad, deny their own divinity. Even though in the scriptures it actually says that ye are gods and sons of the Most High. It says it right there, but they deny. Oh, we have to worship Jesus. Jesus never asked you to worship him. Why are you doing it? He didn't teach you that. He taught you to be humble to each other's needs. He did the same thing. He was just a seed of information. So yeah, it is frustrating. It's very frustrating, right? And you wonder if there's going to be a group of people that break through, obviously, that have broken out of. And I have met quite a few people that broke away from Christian churches because they understood this concept. I was on podcasts where they really understood this. And there's really only two paths, right? There's the path of the heart and non-judgment and no debt. You can never hold somebody in debt, right? Why would you hold somebody in debt for something that they don't understand? And be open to receive. Or a path of judgment and death and debt, right? I mean, this whole world is based on that theology of judgment, debt, and it's slowly dying because nobody likes that. Why would you want that? Right? So you will always be protected as long as you are serving the organism, at least speaking something that's correct for the people around you, not holding anybody in debt for the way they feel, the way they don't feel. It's a difficult place to be, to not be triggered at all by anything ever again. It's really hard to get that far, to never be triggered, regardless of whether or not people believe you or not believe you or understand where you're at. And, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to hear and get on this short message love you guys, obviously. And is there anything I do for you? Just, reach out to me through my email and let me know. I would love to come see you. I love traveling. I love doing anything. So, or even if you want to FaceTime me, whatever, If there's anything I can do for you, I'd be more than happy. So, love you guys. Let's pull an Oracle card before I go. Might as well, right?
Okay, Bug. Remember, I was looking for my registration. I had one at one time, but I don't know what
In your
happened.
car?
Yeah.
I don't know what you did with it. Remember we looked at it.
Yeah.
All you got to
I
do,
get
you
pulled
could get a
over.
new one.
What do they do? If I get pulled over, what do they do?
I'll arrest you. Throw you in jail. I'll probably never see you again. They look it up. They look up your license. They already know what your registration.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, as soon as they get behind you, they can look at your registration and then
They know they'll have to ask you for it. They'll ask you for it.
they'll ask you for it. Make sure you're carrying it on you, just because it's in the law that says you have to. If you're driving,
Well, I need to get one.
all you have to do is say, "I'm not driving. I'm traveling," and then they'll look at you funny.
You don't have to get one. To get one, where do I go? The courthouse?
No, it's just Mother Earth. All you got to do is just get online and order a new one. We'll just buy tabs for this year and they'll send it to you.
Oh, okay.
Because you haven't bought tabs for this year yet. I don't think you need to till it's either May or June. I can't remember when yours expired. We can look it up. Anyway,
You already have this now.
love you guys. I'm going to get off here. I'll be seeing you. Bye.